and welcome. It's another Confessions podcast here from your friends at Radio 2. And to prove it, yeah, festive. A little bit sounds of the 60s. Yeah. Just to prove that I've got all this array of wonderfulness which I can play you. We've got the Confessions coming up. This week's Concise Collection features I Believe I Can Fly, What's That Coming Over the Hill, Songs in the Key of Strife, and Kids in America. But first, a little bit of a Caribbean vibe on this. Yeah. By the way, if you get a confessional thought, once you've listened to these, confessions at bbc.co.uk. It's later than you think. All right. Here are the confessions. Dear Father Simon, after much persuasion from my husband, we wish to confess to our sin. Many years ago, when our eldest granddaughter was 2 years old, we took her to our local annual air show on the beach. We cycled down to the seafront with her in a baby seat on the back of my bike, full of anticipation, expecting her to enjoy it as much as we did. I like nothing better than a big, throbbing Sea King helicopter hovering above me, and that year we had one attending the air show. I don't think I've ever had a throbbing Sea King helicopter hovering. Anyone done? No. And apparently there's nothing like it.
Nothing like it, apparently.
The ride down was pleasant enough, with her on the back of the bike, all excited, bag of sweets clutched in her tiny hands. Upon arrival at the seafront, we propped the bikes up against the seawall and waited for the planes to appear. The show was started by a performance from the Red Arrows. The moment they flew into view, our granddaughter immediately began to bawl and howl and make a incredible racket. She got louder and louder and eventually outscreamed the Red Arrows. Well, if that's true, that is some volume. We made our escape, pedalling as fast as we could away from the prom. Unfortunately, those were the days when the planes were allowed to fly over the town. As fast as I pedalled, the planes seemed to be following us. Eventually, we reached home and we calmed her down. I was most upset to miss my lovely throbbing Sea King helicopter and vowed never to take the children with us again so we could sit on the beach and eat ice cream with no interruptions. Well, the following years went by quite well. We went every year with no children to see our beloved aircraft with no distractions other than the odd hot dog. Now, when our grandchildren were about 5, they asked one year if we would take them to the air show. Well, we'd come up with a splendid excuse not to take them with us. So my husband said we couldn't take them as we were doing the wing walking.
Excellent.
For the Utterly Buttery team. There are other teams, but that was the one that we picked on. Because we'd seen some wing walking, we thought, that's us. That's
For the Utterly Butterly team.
Yeah, apparently the Utterly Buttery team, they're a team of wing walkers. Anyway, that was the team.
Okay.
It's just a team of wing walkers. You've got to pick a team.
Yeah,
I think they're sponsored by that particular brand.
Yeah, sponsored that. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that.
No.
But anyway.
I probably shouldn't have asked about it. Never mind.
Anyway,
Okay.
you know
Stop.
that brand?
Yeah.
They sponsored it.
Okay.
To our surprise, the grandchildren believed us. Their parents took them and we said to watch out for us as we would wave as we flew past whilst we were doing the wing walking. They wouldn't miss us. We would be strapped to the top of the plane. They would be bright yellow biplanes. It'll be quite obvious. You think it would be. On the day we hit up the far end of the beach, we had a lovely time. Our daughter said she would drop in after the air show to see us. Well, they duly arrived at ours with 2 very excited children saying how clever we were. And yes, they saw us waving and turning upside down on our wing walk. We kept quiet and let them believe it really was us. Years went past and the story carried on and grew, and they told all their school friends that their nanny and granddad did wing walking, and we just couldn't bring ourselves to tell them otherwise. We became legends. Legends is what we were, say Linda and Colin in Clacton. One day, my husband and I were sorting through the family photo box as we had a surplus of photos. We wanted to give some to each of our grandchildren. We found a photo we took in Cheddar of someone, I don't know who, abseiling down the gorge there, which is a pretty extraordinary thing. Well, we couldn't help ourselves and giggling wrote on the back, "This is Nanny abseiling." We popped it in on the pile for their perusal. They honestly believed that they had the most intrepid grandparents in the whole wide world, and they bragged about our daring do to all their friends. Not only did we wing walk, we abseiled down sheer rock faces, we did caving, paragliding, skateboarding, you name it, we could do it. Here's the thing, to this day, have never corrected them on this subject. They are now grown up themselves and still believe it really was us doing those fantastic exploits. Doing the Cheddar Gorge abseiling, doing the wing walking. Father Simon, we are now great-grandparents and haven't the heart to tell them it was not us wing walking. It was not us abseiling. We simply didn't want to take them with us to the air shows. Linda and Colin from Clacton-on-Sea. I always love it when I am the person that has to break the news. What? For years, this family have dined out on the derring do of the grandparents, now great-grandparents. It turns out not to be. They were just having a beer down at the end of the beach after all. Anyway, Linda and Colin, a fine tale. I think there might be quite a few grandparents saying, do you think we should now come? I think we should say we never did all that stuff. Anyway, Sister Bobby, what are you thinking there?
There must be so many stories like this, grandparents' hijinks, and the things you do to amuse children. I actually think you're equally responsible, and I love it, actually, that you came up together and said, look, we can't do this again. Also, children don't like loud noises, so you had to think of actually a reasonable way to exclude them that obviously they don't necessarily understand. Trying to tell a 5-year-old they won't like it when you know that they don't like it, but they don't yet realise that they won't like it, is what you're trying to protect them from. So I think you were trying to look after them. It wasn't actually just for self-interest. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't purely self-interest. I think it was a genuine concern for taking care of them. You are completely forgiven.
Completely forgiven. Let's see
and many times over.
Yes. What do you say, Brother Matthew?
Surely the question here is, why shouldn't a pair of grandparents be doing the wing walking and the abseiling? No reason at all. Also, it strikes me wing walking actually, I mean, you're strapped in, you know, you're almost the same as
Not
a
much to
passenger,
it.
really.
Not much to it.
Not much to it. I mean, you know, it's not as if you're actually walking. You're not walking at all. You're strapped in, you're just standing up. The only difference between you and someone sat in the back seat is that you're standing up. So, really, that intrepid? Don't think so. So I
Would you like to try it?
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. Looking forward to the emails. I am going to forgive.
Dear Father Simon and the Forgiving Few, this one comes from, let me just see, let's say it comes from Barry, shall we?
Let's.
Okay, thanks, Barry. I come before you in an attempt to cleanse my soul and ease my conscience. It's the early 90s, and having just left my teenage years behind, I was studying fishery science at an agricultural college deep in the south of England. As part of the curriculum, I needed a work placement, was delighted when I was offered a salmon fishery bailiff and gillie job on a large estate, west coast of Scotland. Gillie, as you know, being a male attendant, fishing and hunting guide, and not a low-cut, tongueless shoe, which is also a gillie.
I didn't know that.
Is that obvious that I looked that up? Along with Emperor Penguin?
Yep.
Anyway, that's what I was doing. On a large estate at west coast of Scotland. Not only was it miles away, it was also on a large island in the Irish Sea. Father Simon, I do enjoy the great outdoors and the wilderness, but this place made the middle of nowhere look busy. On arrival, I was fitted out in estate tweed and looked rather dapper, even though I say so myself. I quite fancy a little bit of estate tweed. What do you
Isn't
think?
it a bit itchy?
Is it?
I don't know. It doesn't, you know.
Maybe not then. I'll have mine made of cashmere.
Yes.
That's okay. I felt I was destined for high things, but my dreams of becoming Mr. Darcy crumbled when I was taken to my accommodation, a communal house which can only be described as a cross between the set of Men Behaving Badly and The Young Ones. Beer cans were stacked to form a feature wall in the hall, and the kitchen had a modern art sculpture on the draining board which consisted of dirty dishes and cutlery which reached towards the light fittings. The occupants appeared to eat off paper plates, as I can guess no one would break the Mexican standoff and actually do any washing up. I was greeted by my roommates Tom and Dave, who made up half of the guys I would be house sharing with. As I looked at the sink, Dave said helpfully, "We work hard, we play hard." But playing hard 30 miles from the nearest pub, or neighbours for that matter, was, shall we say, a challenge. To quote my good old Nan, "We had to make our own entertainment." I don't know why I shouted. We often worked nights trying to catch poachers, but mainly we just disturbed couples who appeared to be enjoying some form of car aerobics. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. Anyway, Father Simon, I had been on the island for several months now, and I'd settled in. The guests in the estate's large hall were having a summer fancy dress party, and the theme was Disney films, as a lot of them had young children. One of the guests came as King Louie, the orangutan off Jungle Book, And that's when the glint first appeared in my eye. I'd been chosen that morning to drop the costumes back in the barn, but for some reason the King Louis outfit didn't quite make it back. I set off that night on poacher patrol with Dave, and Tom, my 2 roommates. My rucksack slightly larger than normal. Now, Dave was not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but was a beast of a man and a great laugh. He would never say boo to a goose, but looked the part, if you get my gist. Tom and I hatched our plan early in the day. I would be dropped off as normal to act as lookout on a high hill somewhere with a radio, and the guys would go off on poacher patrol. Well, instead of going to my usual lookout post, I donned the said monkey outfit and made my way down the hill. The lads would be coming up a farm track in a short while to join the main road, so I placed an old plastic fish crate in the middle of the track and hid in the ditch. The lights of the Land Rover drew nearer, and laughing in now my very hot and sweaty suit, I watched as Big Dave got out to move the crate from in front of the vehicle. Phase 1 of the plan was a success, and it was now time to execute Phase 2. I crawled out from the ditch and unleashed my best drama school Creature from the Black Lagoon voice. And Creature from the Black Lagoon walk. In our heads, when Tom and I had planned this, we pictured Dave running off in sheer terror, but the preconceived plan vanished into thin air as Dave proceeded to use the plastic fish crate to hit me about the head. And then hit me about the body. And then hit me about the legs. He was unable to hear my screams of pain from within the suit, so I scrambled back to my feet whilst under heavy fire. I'm sorry to say the flight came before the fight response, and I ran, rather awkwardly in a suit slightly too big for me, up to the main road with Dave in hot pursuit. It was now at this point that the late summer ferry sailing had landed, and a convoy of caravans and holidaymakers made its way along the remote island road. This is where the real confession comes in, and the real forgiveness is needed. Mainly for the occupants of this convoy. A band of bemused and frankly terrified children looked out of their vehicle windows at midnight and witnessed a 6-foot Bigfoot cantering like a wounded deer up the side of the road. I can still hear their cries of terror right now as I send you this confession. The deranged, angry man mountain armed with a plastic fish crate only added to the B-movie scares. Nowadays, it would just be a 12A, but back then, this was X-certificate stuff. I should say I might have been acting up a bit at this stage, rather fancying my role as an ape and everything, what with my new audience. It wasn't quite Planet of the Apes, but it wasn't bad. This was probably the only thing the tourists had seen of the island since landing, and our little show probably did nothing for the Island Tourist Board hard at work. But I realise now I might have unnecessarily terrified the young children on their early arrival on this top island. And so I need your forgiveness, please, Father Simon and the crew there, and the audience, more to the point. Well, such fun to be had when you've got a King Louis outfit and a whole estate and you're on poacher patrol. What do you say, Sister Bobby?
Well, first of all, I thought you were going to frighten some of the, romantics going on. So I'm really actually relieved that you didn't.
Well, that could have been quite fun.
Well, no, I don't think. I think that people could have been terrified. The very fact that you got your mate, Dave, and he was your target is absolutely fine, because that's just hijinks amongst a lot of you. You were lucky that he didn't knock you out, though. That's the only danger there. But well done. I think it's great. Also, what you did is you provided a sighting of Bigfoot for the first time in the UK. So that's worth doing, and that was by accident. I don't think you need to be forgiven.
But
I wish you worked in my office.
A Bigfoot being hit by a plastic crate.
Well, you see, the thing is, if the children were frightened, the parents can say, look, it's all right. They're beating him back into the forest.
If you see the Bigfoot, attack it with a plastic crate, and everything will be fine. Brother Matthew.
Well, yes, I'm with Bobby on this. I think that this, obviously, I think it was a bit of a mistake to leave the fish crate there to be hit with. If you're going to stop the Jeep in its tracks, find something that then can't be used to beat you about the head with. But you'd only think that really tourism would go on the rise on this particular island if there was the chance of King Louis from Jungle Book being set about by a man with a crate. I'd go and watch that. So, yes, I am going to forgive.
Father Simon, my confession begins about 20 years ago, when, due to a lack of space at work, I began sharing a small office with another female manager. She was lovely and, unlike me, quite posh. I later discovered she came from a very distinguished... John, Bobby.
Thank you.
J-O-H-N. I
And-
later discovered... What?
And
I
him, you
didn't
never said.
know either, so...
John.
John.
Blimey. John.
Yeah, okay.
I later discovered she came from a very distinguished, possibly aristocratic family. Against all odds, we got on famously, and due to our enforced proximity and overhearing each other's personal phone calls on a daily basis, we came to know our respective families quite well. On my daughter's first day of junior school, my wife and I were advised that all pupils were expected to learn a musical instrument. I was hoping my daughter would choose to learn the recorder or a triangle or something cheap and small, but instead she opted for the piano, something we didn't have lying around our house, as we are definitely not a musical family. So I was deputised to source a suitable instrument upon which our little one could hone her skills. After a week-long fruitless search for a suitable upright at an affordable price, my lovely office colleague overheard me explaining to my wife that I was struggling to find a piano for our child prodigy. She then kindly said, "Well," because remember, she's aristocratic, "if you need a piano, I may be able to help." She went on to explain that there was a vintage upright piano in her mother's orangery.
Orangery?
In her mother's orangery.
Oh, excellent.
It had been in the family for years, but was now largely unused. So, if I'd like it, all we needed to do was organise a removal company to collect it. Well, I didn't even know what an orangery was, or where she might be hiding it. But anyway...
Is it an extension?
I don't know. It's
A
somewhere
glass,
where you
yeah.
grow, or like a conservatory, I
Yeah,
imagine.
Yeah.
it's where you go to the oranges.
Yeah. My colleague assured me that her mother wouldn't hear of accepting any money from us. All I needed to do was collect it and make good use of it. I immediately phoned my wife and revealed the good news. However, never having owned or moved a piano, I soon discovered that we needed a specialist transport company to handle the logistics of getting the antique behemoth to our home. This was expensive, but as the piano was free, I considered it a justifiable expense. The day of the pickup and delivery, I was in my office and my lovely, generous colleague eagerly awaiting news from home that the piano had arrived safely. I didn't have to wait long. I answered my wife's call with a silent thumbs up and a grin to my posh colleague, but quickly pressed the receiver hard against my ear to minimise the volume of the screaming profanity that was emanating from my dear wife's lips, who, it's fair to say, was not happy with what had just been delivered to the house. With a Richter's grin firmly etched on my face, I made my excuses to my office colleagues and returned home. Upon arrival, I observed the removal men had departed, and the lady of the house was sat alone, sobbing and pointing at the vintage instrument that had been deposited in our newly decorated dining room. When it was made in the 1890s, the piano had been finished in some handsome, shiny black ebony with real ivory keys. However, at some point, an errant aristo had decided that black was not the colour du jour and tipped paint stripper over half the surface, exposing the bare timbers beneath. Added to this, the white ivory keys had permanent green ink scribbled all over them, and around the back there were cobwebs and protruding straw where the mice and rats had lived, or even still lived. And it was badly out of tune, by the way. My wife's silent death stare was surprisingly effective at inspiring me to find a quick solution. In a moment of inspiration, I telephoned a local piano specialist, who, as luck would have it, was able to come round that afternoon. Upon arrival, he gave the antique upright a cursory examination and proclaimed this to be an excellent piano, save for its present condition and definitely worth salvaging. The expert then triumphantly proclaimed he would definitely be able to bring it back to its former glory for a bargain price of about £2,000. Thank you very much.
What?
Ka-ching. To be honest, I hadn't thought of spending anything like that much, but my options were pretty limited. Grievous bodily harm was a distinct possibility, and I had to face my posh office colleague the following morning, trying my best to fake enormous gratitude. So I agreed to the refurb, and the piano was immediately whisked away to the repairer, much to my wife's relief. In due course, the piano came back from the repairer in perfect showroom condition and was awarded pride of place in our dining room. The woodwork had been restored to its former glory, the keys replaced with modern gleaming white ones, and all evidence of resident fauna abolished. My wife was happy, my daughter was happy. But while still basking in the afterglow of first-time piano ownership, we received a nice note from my daughter's music teacher saying she had never ever come across a pupil so thoroughly unmusical with zero aptitude for the piano, and was going to suggest that my little angel should instead learn the drums. Oh, right, thanks. A month or so later, I accepted another job, and on my last day, my posh office cohabitee sidled up to me. After wishing me well, she asked after my daughter's progress with learning the piano. I gave a politely vague answer, and she said, "I'm so glad you've made good use of the old piano. Mummy will be so pleased. But if it's not too much trouble, I was wondering when would be convenient to have it collected." Exactly, you can hear Bobby gasp. "Oh," I stammered, your mother wants it back." "Yes, I should have mentioned, it's been in the family for years, is handed down to successive girls on their 5th birthday, and my niece will be 5 soon. No rush, here's my number. Let me know when's convenient for us to collect it. It'll look lovely when it's back in the orangery." Father Simon, I must regretfully confess here and now to this thing. I've never contacted my ex-colleague as requested and have remained incommunicado for 20 years. Until now. Every day I regret the disappointment inevitably felt by my ex-colleague's niece and hope the young woman has now recovered from her trauma. I regret ending a century of important tradition within one of the nation's leading families. I regret I am probably regarded by this ennobled clan as a notorious piano thief. We still have the old piano in our dining room where it remains unplayed and probably the world's most expensive photograph stand. But I beg for your forgiveness and hope you'll find it in your heart to absolve me from blame in this most British of misunderstandings. Well, a couple of high points there. First of all, the note from the music teacher saying, no, she's no good, you've got to get some drums instead. And then the aristocratic lady wanting the piano back. I think there'd been a big aristocratic row because clearly that isn't the way it was offered in the first place, and I think Mum thought the orangery was somewhat empty and needed the piano back. What do you say there, Sister Bob?
Oh God, this is so tricky because I actually don't know what I'd do. I think I might be quite similar to him. I might just retreat and hope that actually sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do because sometimes actually lack of action is your best action. So I'm John. The other thing
head in
is
the sand is what you're saying.
Well,
Ostrich
no,
time.
it's not how I am. But given the situation, also they gave you a worn-out, rotten, unplayable piano, and you quite kind of nicely didn't tell them it just cost you, $2,000 to get it playable again. But there was a point when she said we can have it back and said yes, but unfortunately because the condition obviously it arrived in, we've just invested this much money, so of course you can have him back, but I need the cost back.
Yes, I think it was what are you going to do? I'm going to just pretend it never happened and I'm going to change my job. That's what I'm going to do to get out of it. Forgiven.
What on the principle, John,
Yes.
you really should have fessed
Yes.
up. So not forgiven,
Not
but
forgiven.
understandable.
Brother Matthew.
Am I alone in thinking that this was some kind of ruse by this upper-class family who wanted to just basically get the piano fixed, realised that when they delivered this piano to this other family that everything would have to get sorted out with all the mice and the cobwebs and the green keys and everything else, and then realised, and then just suddenly drop into conversation, oh, by the way, can we have the piano back? We need it for my niece for some reason. So I'm very suspicious of this. Also, what's this music teacher on about saying if you've got no musical aptitude, take up the drums? Ridiculous, outrageous, and a slur, and as recognised by every drummer in every rock band ever. So I am going to forgive because of this so-called posh woman.
So the aristocrats
who
are trying to
thinks she
get
can
away with it.
Everything handed
All right.
to her on a plate.
Father Simon and those who sometimes forgive. My confession concerns the American celebration of Thanksgiving. The year is 2003, and the place where the deed took place is Oklahoma. My husband, let's call him Johnny Boy, had been headhunted to build quite a large manufacturing facility near the small town of Ardmore in southern Oklahoma. Now, there are a few facts that you might not know about Oklahoma. It's bigger than England and Wales put together, with a bit to spare, and has only around the same number of people as Wales. It is bitterly cold in January and February. We moved there in February, so this was not our finest decision. It is beautiful in the spring and autumn, give or take the odd tornado, and the rest of the year it is hot, or as the Okies say, real hot. It's not much of an expression, is it? Or colloquialism, just saying real hot. Anyway, you probably have to say it with the proper accent, which I'm not going to do. Not yet, anyway. And one last point. Oklahoma forms part of what is known as the Bible Belt, which has a bearing on my tale. As two Brits only just the right side of 60, selling up and leaving our family for a new life 4,500 miles away was very scary. But the decision was made easier, knowing that we were moving among good church-going folk. We thought that even though Oklahoma was a big hunting state with lots of guns, it would still be a nice place to live, which incidentally turned out to be very true. Now, Ardmore had a lot of churches. In fact, most of the people who worked for John went to church. One of his team, David, had a wife called Debbie, and Debbie took quite a shine to me and would often call at our house and bring her 4 kids, who would then run amok in our lovely large house. However, because I missed our own grandkids so much, it was easily bearable. Now, Debbie was fascinated by my accent, was forever telling me in her southern drawl, "Valerie, I just love the way you talk. You know, the way you talk, I just love it so much."
So do we.
You're in Dallas.
So do we. So do we.
Hot diggity dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're so cute.
Are you all right in your seat there?
On one of Debbie's visits at the beginning of November, she asked me if she would like to join them for Thanksgiving dinner. Wow, as they say in these parts, our first real American Thanksgiving. I couldn't wait to tell John, and he was as excited as me. Soon the day arrived, and we were to be at David and Debbie's place by 6 p.m. We dressed up to the nines, as us Brits do on such occasions, and in fact took so long to get ready we were in danger of running late. I could hear John rummaging around in his wine cellar. It was actually our tornado shelter, but it was the safest place to keep the wine. A good red, he declared, bottle in hand. I don't know, John, if they drink very much. Well, let's take a bottle of white then, so that they can choose.
Yeah.
Stunning logic.
Of course.
It's known as the Billy Joel logic. A bottle of red, a bottle of white. Just depends upon their appetite. John, I have a feeling they don't drink at all. Well, we can't go empty-handed, can we? He said. So I dashed upstairs to look for a secret stash of favourite things that I'd hidden among the belongings that we'd shipped over. Among the stash were many boxes of chocolatey treats that I knew we'd miss in the 3 years that we planned to be there. I grabbed the first box of chocolates, and into the bag they went along with the wine, and we were out the door. At David and Debbie's house, we were greeted with many hugs and kisses and ushered into the house as honoured guests. Now, in my mind, I had pictured an American Thanksgiving with a huge table, fine china, at the centre a turkey the size of a small ostrich. However, it wasn't like that. Not at all. Turned out it was a buffet with paper plates. And on top of that, we had the dress code all wrong. It was supposed to be jeans, T-shirts and baseball caps. I said to myself, well, Valerie, this is not New England, it's the Midwest, it's cowboy country. This is how they do things. Can I get you a drink, John? Said our host. I watched as a smile spread across my husband's face. Yes, please. What have you got? Oh, just about everything. We've got Coke, Pepsi, homemade lemonade, iced tea, orange juice, cordial, Sprite, Fanta, Dr. Pepper, Lilt, apple ties.
I think you've covered the soft drinks range there, haven't you? Well done. Yeah.
Thank you. I watched my husband's smile disappear as he said very quietly,
Water, please.
Lemonade, please. At this point, I pushed the wine further down the bag and flashed him a "told you so" kind of look. Debbie, we have a gift. Sorry, I almost forgot. Debbie, we have a gift. Oh no, this is
Val.
This is Val.
Val.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
Get me out of here,
It's
we're in
easy to
trouble.
get confused.
Yeah.
So many voices I have to be in command of.
It's difficult being you.
Debbie, we have a gift for you. We got a box of chocolates all the way from England, I said. Oh, me and David don't like candy, I'm afraid. Why don't you just give it to the kids? They'll love it. As I handed it over to one of the girls, my heart stopped because I saw written on the box, finest brandy and whiskey liqueur chocolates. What to do? Well, in my haste not to be late, I'd picked up the wrong box. But it was too late, and in seconds, they were open, and the 4 kids were tucking in. One of the girls tugged at my skirt, looked up at me and said, "This candy is real." Same voice, I know. But, "This candy is real good, so good. Best candy I ever tasted. Thank you so much. You're such a beautiful, lovely lady. Wherever you come from. Over there in Wales."
Whaleshire.
I thought it wise at this point to surreptitiously throw the box lid away and to disguise the fact that those who wanted a drink didn't get one, and those who didn't want a drink got one instead. The Grand Marnier truffle surprise went down particularly well. So I beg forgiveness, first of all, to our hosts who we learnt were teetotal, to their 4 children for introducing them to the demon drink, albeit laced with chocolate, and to my poor, hard-working husband who had to be satisfied with chocolate mints instead of liqueurs with his after-dinner coffee that Christmas, because obviously Valerie couldn't go out and buy any more, because don't know what happened there. Anyway, it's a Thanksgiving confession. It's an understandable thing, but maybe she should have been slightly more interventionist and said, no, you can't have that because it's a Grand Marnier truffle surprise, little child. Sister Bobby looks conflicted again.
Conflicted.
Well, the thing is,
Bobby.
you shouldn't really give children alcohol. I'm surprised the kids ate them, actually, because children, I remember having the cures. They taste revolting.
Like
it's
shampoo.
not till you get to this age that you go, give me that chocolate and alcohol in one mouthful, that you really appreciate it. But I feel sorry for David, actually. I know I'm going off on a tangent, but Debbie's husband, David, when she said that we don't like candy, I bet David was going, I love candy, especially with alcohol in it.
He'd had whiskey on his porridge that morning anyway.
I think it's tricky. I think, actually, when it comes to alcohol and children, I think you need to fess up. So unforgiven.
I thought you'd probably say that. Now let's see what the novice makes of it all.
Well, I'm going to go out on an opposite limb here because, by the way, £1 billion will be spent on turkeys in America. $1 billion. I mean, yeah, just on Thanksgiving turkeys. Never mind all the rest of it.
Very interesting.
It is today. It's all right. I just thought, obviously not that interesting. But yeah, they obviously created some addicts, haven't they? They've got these kids hooked on booze early doors, and the kids loved it. But it was a genuine mistake, and Johnny Boy, who was an honorary Okie, I felt for him. No, I think Val, you did good. You don't need to be purloined, so I'm forgiving you. Of course I am, my darling. Definitely.
Brother Matthew.
I mean, this surely comes under the category of fair warning. Would have been nice that there will be no booze in my house. That would have been nice. But I mean, family gatherings, you need bluntly to have alcohol to get through. Not mine.
Surely you don't.
Obviously, mine are always a delight, and every single one of them. Relish them to the last drop. But most family gatherings, you need a lot of booze to get through them. So I would say forgiven because you need the booze.
Well, they were this week's confessions. Meantime, you're still thinking about this. Can only play you 30 seconds because then it becomes illegal. Anyway, confessions at bbc.co.uk if you want to send in a story. More in a week, and don't forget you can listen to all the shows from the last 30 days on the iPlayer. Monday, John Simpson was in BBC World Affairs editor, talking about his book We Chose to Speak of War and Strife. Tuesday was another belting tunes day. New Order, The Doors, Al Green and Supertramp. Hang on, I've got to lose this here. 28, 29, 30. There you go. Acclaimed author Zadie Smith was our special guest on Wednesday, talking about her inspirations and love of dance and her new book Swing Time. And Thursday, it was a street food special. Nige preparing roasted chicken wings, aubergine, honey and blue cheese omelette, and slow-cooked broad beans with poached egg. Exactly like they cook on the street round the corner from you. And if you got to this point of our podcast, point number 1, thank you for staying with us. Point number 2, you could tweet me saying, holding Graham Norton. Thank you very much.